We got a lot of rain last night, and we didn't really realize how much rain we got until we walked down to the barn and saw the rivers running through the pasture. So our property is bordered by a creek down there, which is really cool. It's always nice to have a creek on your property, but it also means that your property is the lowest elevation around, and all the water from all the neighboring little hills and everything is funneling down through our property and making its way to the creek. So this is the first big rain that we've had since we've been here. So we've actually been waiting for something like this so that we can see the contour of the ground and see the natural way that the water wants to move across our property. So that way we can kind of direct it a little bit. And so we're just taking kind of a good survey of the water and how it's moving through the property right now, and starting to make some very preliminary plans on what we can do to kind of shape that water, to move it away from our barn, move it out of our pasture, collect it maybe to make a pond. So this is a very interesting day as we see all this water. We're just gonna observe these things and see what we can figure out. So as you can see across this little street there behind the basketball hoop, there's a hill, and then there's a little road right there, just a gravel road. But that water from that hill is running down, and you can hear it bubbling under the basketball hoop. Hear it? Under the basketball court, it's bubbling. And there's also a ditch and a culvert coming under the road, and that's feeding water down this direction. And it's all ending up, you guessed it, down by our barn and flowing through our pasture. So you can really see the contour of the ground here by where this water is deciding to flow. And it really is flowing. And it leads, you can almost just see it right here, all the way straight to the side of the barn there. And then from there it shoots out across the pasture. It's getting pretty deep. This is a day that you need to have rain boots. Look at how deep this puddle has gotten. It's very deep, actually. Ooh. Hey goats, anybody want to go swimming? They've got their own little wading pool right in front of their doorway here. Oh, makes you wonder why someone would choose this place to build a barn. This is neat, a little river over here. Flowing freely down there. There's a ditch down next to that tree line that shoots down to the creek. So that's where all the water is finding its way down to the creek. So this is a mighty amount of water. I'm not really sure how we're going to be able to change its course too much, but we're going to try to do our best to divert it away from the barn, because this is exactly where you do not want your water piling up. So here is the La Mancha pasture, and this is where the water is exiting our pasture and flowing across our property line down to the creek. So water can be our friend. You need it for obviously for growing things and for your animals. But water can also be very destructive. It can be very destructive to buildings. It can cause unhealthy situations for your animals, cause them to get sick. Moist areas are bad for bacteria and growth of icky stuff that can make your animals sick. So it is a good thing that our barn itself is nice and dry inside despite all this. So you can just see the layout of the land. From where I'm standing right here, where the water's flowing, you can just see, oh, their neighbor's donkey. You can just see that this is the lowest point and everything is just flowing down to here. And our barn, unfortunately, sits at one of the lowest points in our property on that side. It goes from high to low.
So I've been walking the property this morning and I noticed that our neighbor has, he has a ditch up there for catching their water, the rain runoff as well. And it comes through right here and it comes all the way across our property. I'm glad that we didn't put in a permanent fence right now because this is going to give us a good idea of where the water problems are on our property. We've got some video of all the other water in the contour of the land that it's following to get down to the creek. So now that we have a better idea where all the water's flowing at, in the springtime, I think we're going to go ahead and put in a couple swales to help control all the water flow. And we're probably going to put in a pond as well. I'm not exactly sure the best way to manage everything, but for running some kind of permaculture farm and controlling water and using it to your benefit, this is going to give us a really good idea of some of the things that we're going to need to implement and put in place in order to do that successfully.
I'm just following this down to the creek to check it out and see how full the creek is right now. We usually get a decent amount of water coming through it, but I'm sure that it's a lot more full now. So we're now this far away from the barn. Let's see, the barn's over there. And this is just a little glimpse at the back side of our property. Our property kind of goes in an L shape. It comes down this way straight, and then it shoots off at an angle, like a right angle, 90 degrees, over that direction. And all along this side, which is quite a long stretch, is where the creek is. This is a huge area of pasture over here, but we really don't like the idea of any animals being this far away from the barn and our house because it'll be hard to keep a good eye on them. But we might use this property, this section of our property, to grow hay or do something like that in the future. But let's walk down to the creek and take a look at how full it is. Yeah, this is a lot of water. This is so much more than it was. So we're gonna have to learn quite a bit about creek management here because we have heard that this whole section from that point coming down to like right here used to be where a large tree was, and it was holding in the embankment, and that tree has fallen and allowed the water to just take away this whole section and scoop it out right here. So when water's going this fast, it can really do stuff like that. It can knock down quite a bit of embankment and you can lose some of your land. So Peter and I are probably going to have to give this creek a really good long look and probably plant, we're thinking maybe some willows, some willow trees along some areas where we think it needs some reinforcement. But this is just a lot of water. This is quite a lot. Here's just another look upstream here. It sounds pretty. We really are thrilled to have a creek on the edge of our property. And as you can tell, it hasn't been cleared in a while, so we've got a little bit of work to make it accessible. But once we clear it out, put some steps down to it, and it's not flowing this fast. It usually is a really peaceful looking creek that is very safe and fun looking for the kids to come play in the summertime. But right now, not so much. So, like I said before, we were actually waiting for a heavy rain so that we can see the natural lay of the land and how the water flows. We know that water is a very powerful force. It's actually what caused the mudslide. So we don't want to underestimate the power of the water can have on shaping our land, on affecting our buildings. And we want to take control of that as much as we can, but at the same time, we want to work with nature. We want to work with the lay of the land. We want to work with the way the water wants to flow. And we don't want to push it too far from where it wants to flow, because that doesn't really usually work. But we do want to direct it a little. We want to have it fill up a pond. We want to slow it down at times. And hopefully we can get it to steer away from our barn so that our barn can continue to remain, can continue to have a strong foundation and not start to crack and break apart. So we have a healthy respect for water and what it can do for you and also do to you. So we are going to hit the drawing boards here and do some research, and we're going to figure out what's the best way to tackle this river running through our property. Thank you for watching this video from Honey Acres Homestead. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, make sure you hit the subscribe button. See you next time. Since it was a little too soggy to work outside, we decided to muck out the barn. The kids saw this as an opportunity to play.